All right. Shalom, shalom. I'm going to start off by saying, Call Halalim La, Yahweh, Bahashem Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rakak Kodash. Let it give it all praise to the Heavenly Father in the name of His only begotten Son, also in the name of the Holy Spirit in the Paleo Hebrew. I also want to give a double honor to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, whom I learned the truth from. Greetings, salutations to all you walkers out there. And again, we're back at it, man. Watching, you know, the prophecies unfolding. We have various theaters of wars. The European theater with the Middle Eastern theater, which is now getting hotter now. We just had Iran just hit a couple ships just yesterday, and the U.S. responded by smashing one of the Iranian um, satellites. Up in one of them islands there of the Straits. You know, now the satellites that the U.S. Navy or that the United States struck, not the Navy, because the Navy, a lot of those naval, like the USSS carriers have now started to retreat. They're on their way back to the U.S. Some of them because they got to be serviced. You know, they can't just be out there floating around. Those mariners have to have food. They have to have munitions. They have to, the vessel itself's got to get serviced. The way they project these attacks are via those Gulf Arab nations. Okay, so Iran just said that they were pretty much looking to see which nation was responsible, which Gulf state was responsible for allowing the U.S. to carry out those attacks, and that's the nation that's going to get the response. Okay, so because it's a tit for tat war, man. You know, it's very hard to carry out war when you're thousands of miles away. The Iranians are fighting a war in their backyard, man. This is a war that the U.S. cannot win. Same thing with NATO. What's going on over there in Russia? It's very important because Russia, they just said that all them, all them, all them European nations that are providing these drones to commit terroristic attacks towards Moscow and inland Russia were viable military targets. Now, these European nations are part of are part of NATO. They're part of NATO. So we're in the cusp of this Third World War. These soldiers, they're gonna go. You're gonna die. That's just it. But they laugh because they have no clue as to what's going on. And this is the thing, the pride of these Americans, man, and of everybody else. They think they're the big hole, big bad in the Navy and this that. We just got defeated by Iran. A third rate military. But the pride of thine heart, and we went over this in the last camp. You had these two Jakes in stupid ass Jakes in uniform. I guess they're Navy. They're going in the Navy or whatever. But again, it's to no avail. To no avail. Let me grab this right quick because it's all in the scriptures, man. We're the bringers of bad news. We're out here to tell you that a lot of you men from this nation and everywhere else are gonna go fight this war and you're gonna die. The scriptures say that the bride's having no bridegrooms. You know. Let me grab that right quick. Let me get it. You know. This is our second Ezra, chapter 16 and 33. It says, "The virgins shall mourn, having no bridegrooms. The women shall mourn, having no husbands. Their daughters shall mourn, having no helpers. In the wars shall their bridegrooms be destroyed, and their husbands shall perish of famine." Right? Hear now these things and understand them, ye servants of the Lord. Behold, the world, behold, Salaki, behold, the word of the Lord, receive it. Believe not the gods of whom the Lord spake. Okay? I'm going to read up a verse so we can get a little bit more understanding. Verse 31 says, "Even so in those days there shall be 3 or 4 left." by them that search their houses with the sword. And the earth shall be laid waste, and the fields thereof shall wax old, and her ways and all her path shall grow full of thorns, because no man shall travel there through. You see? See? And what's gonna make the lands waste? Thermonuclear war. Thermonuclear warfare. You had this dude Sergei Karaganov. Look that man up, man. See, this is the thing, man. You know, if you're in the truth, Salaki, I don't know what this is. If you're in the truth, man, you gotta you know the Lord says we've been anointed, or we have the unction to know all things. Look up Sergei Karaganov. You know, you're supposed to be looking and diving deep into what's going on so you can instruct the people. So when you go out there and you teach, you know, you teach with substance. You know, these prophecies are just quick. Sergei Karaganov, he's a former Russian advisor to Poroshenko, I believe. If I'm not butchering his name, before Putin. Okay, now Putin listens to Sergei Karaganov. Now, Sergei Karaganov was the advisor on the nuclear of Russia's nuclear policy, and he just advised Putin that Russia needs to change their nuclear doctrine. Instead of being a defensive posture, having an offensive posture, meaning strike first. So the Russians thinking of striking NATO with nuclear missiles. This is where we're going, man. And these people are, yo, the rest of these damn Europeans and Americans are tied into because of the NATO Article 5, right? You'll have no clue to what the fuck is going on. Russia's getting ready to nuke UK. And that's what's going to happen. Okay? But we understand that it's at the Lord's time, but it's nigh at hand. Let me grab this. Let me grab this. So Sergei Karaganov is he's a person that Vladimir Putin listens to heavily. Look up this dude, Scott Ritter. He'll tell you about him too. He'll tell you about him. Okay, and who he is, what he does. Okay, even Sergei Lavrov, who's Russia's foreign minister, he even came out and said that Russia's getting ready to change their nuclear policy. Instead of having a defensive nuclear which means that if Russia gets nuked, they respond with nukes. Russia will do a preemptive tactical nuclear attack, right? And this is what's going to happen to UK and to Germany, because they're responsible for providing Ukraine the capability of drones. And this is very real, man. But the average American just walk around, you know, aimlessly. They have no clue as to what's going on. You know, you hear some type of news like that, you expect people to be running around like chickens without their heads cut off, because this is real, man. You know, this is real. Let me grab this. You people are getting ready to die, man. Measure thou the time diligently, right? But just like the scriptures say, man, as the days of Noah were, right? They shall be eating and drinking. I'm going with the Spirit, like I always do. You know, at the end of the day, everything is all true, right? So like the days of Noah were, they eating, drinking, walking in the park, you know, strolling around with their kids, and like nothing's happening. You know, everything's all good and dandy, right? Until that day came with that water. Well, that new water is going to be fire, man. You know, the Lord destroyed the world with water before. This time it's going to be with fire. Them nukes are going to be in the horizon. 2 Ezra 9:1 says, He answered me then and said, Measure thou the time diligently in itself, and when thou seest part of the signs past, which I've told thee before, then shalt thou understand that it is the very same time wherein the highest will begin to visit the world which he made. Therefore, when there shall be seen earthquakes, right? We just had Venezuela get quaked up, right? And that's good for them damn Jakes up there, man. You know, now those are our brothers, but guess what? they're knee deep into witchcraft. I just saw a video of them doing some witchcraft rituals, some bullshit. You know, same thing that the Manassites do, the so-called Cubans, the so-called Haitians, you know, the Dominicans. They're all knee deep into witchcraft, man. That's what the Lord has been doing a number to them, man. Haiti's fucked up completely. The Levites, that's where the bulk of the Levites are, man. You know, because of the witchcraft that they do, voodoo, santeria, you know, and same thing with the damn Mexicans, man. Esau's fucking them up, man, via the cartels. See, a lot of people think that these cartels are Mexican mafias and Mexican. Nah, man, it's the so-called white man that's funding these fucking cartels, man, because they control the drug movement. The so-called white man's embedded in every fucking problem of the planet. Excuse my French, man. As it is written, his words were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. When you look deep into the cartels, who supplies the weapons, who supplies the money, the shipments, go back to let this fucking crazy guy go. Go if you don't believe me, right? Go look up the interview with this dude uh, Pablo Escobar's son, when he said that the CIA, the Mossad, right, was heavy involved with his father's. Basically, Pablo Escobar couldn't do anything without the CIA approval. They knew about all this shit, man. Same thing with the in Afghanistan with the poppy fields and the shipment of heroin. They man, Esau is the devil. The so-called white man. When the Bible talks about the devil, it's talking about the so-called white man. Okay. When the Bible talks about the devil, it's talking about the so-called white man. He's embedded in every fucking thing of the earth, man. You know, this these research centers in Ukraine where they're making biological weapons. The so-called white man's embedded in that. This is the problem. The so-called white man is the problem of the earth, man. You know, he's involved in everything that's wicked. He's the man of perdition. When the Bible talks about the man of perdition, it's talking about him. When the Bible talks about Lucifer in Isaiah the 14th chapter, it's talking about the so-called white man. It's talking about him because he's embedded in all walks of the planet. He rules the world, and look what he's done with it. He turned it to shit. Death, mayhem, war, everywhere, man. This dude's the pale horse the Bible speaks of in the book of Revelations, man. Anyways, let me get back to this. What was I? So yeah, this is part of measuring the time, man. You gotta look deep into what's going on. The petrodollar is about to collapse because these Gulf Arab states, um, you know, got their production facilities bombed. Now, just wait a couple weeks, man. You had this dude on DJ Trump. He went up to the G20 summit, and he said that out of his own mouth, right? He said, what was it? The strategic oil reserves are 4 weeks away, 4 weeks away of being empty. The reason why the average American don't notice the harm, right? They know that they're able to go to their, even though it's a little more expensive, is because America has been tapping into these strategic oil reserves. Now, yes, America produces light crude oil, but that's not the important oil. The important oil is the heavy crude, which is the oil that produces diesel and jet fuel, man. Without diesel, guess what? Your stores ain't gonna get filled. Your you know, what else? You know, your restaurants ain't gonna get their shipments, and etc. Without this heavy crude, right, that America does not produce well, right? These Gulf Arab states produce the heavy crude. Russia, which is heavily sanctioned by the U.S., produce the heavy crude. You people are gonna be in dire straits, man. Let me grab this. Suddenly, the sown places will appear unsown, right? The sown places, right? The sown places. This is prophecy right here. Now, this dude, this dude Nero, He's scrambling around because of the midterms. So he's trying to put a band-aid on a big-ass wound that's gushing a bunch of blood. But you can't, when you have a big wound, you can't just put a band-aid over it. There's a bigger cost to that wound you got to address. But he can't because he's knee-deep. This is, Second Esdras chapter 6 and 22. It says, I'm going to read up a little. Verse 19, 2 and 19, it says, and will begin to make inquisition of them what they be that have hurt unjustly with their unrighteousness. And when the affliction of Zion shall be fulfilled, so this is talking about the last days because the affliction of Zion hasn't been fulfilled. We're still in slavery. The so-called white man hasn't released us. We're still his captives, his prisoners, because we're in this system. This is systematic slavery. Okay? It says, and when the world that shall begin to vanish away, right? The world as you people know it, right? Which we cannot fucking wait. It says, shall be finished, then what will I show these tokens, right? So when it begins to vanish away, he's going to show these tokens, right? It says, the books shall be opened before the firmament, and they shall see altogether. And the children of a year old shall speak with their voices. The women with child shall bring forth untimely children of 3 or 4 months old, and they shall live and be raised up, right? And here's the point. And suddenly shall the sown places appear unsown, the full storehouses shall suddenly be found empty. Now, America is a well put together place. When you talk about a sown place, you're talking about, the system of America is well put. You're able to go to work, get a paycheck, you're able to spend your paycheck, and the economy gets recycled. These Gulf Arab states are able to deal, in dollars. They trade oils in dollars. It's a well-built system, which is very well sown. Now, the scriptures prophesy that that's going to come undone. It's going to come, it's going to be destroyed. It's going to implode from within. Well, how is it starting? The decline of the dollar. The petrodollar is almost out of here, right? The inflation is through the roof. Inflation is through the roof, right? The economy is not doing well. Okay, the economy is in a downward spiral. Okay, and that's when you're gonna have in a few weeks, potentially, you're gonna have people coming up to the street because you're gonna see gas prices go up to $10 a gallon. Now you got this dude tit for tat going back, trying to change the military outcome of the Iranian war to finish the war on better terms. But these Iranians ain't gonna let up, man. They ain't gonna let up because guess what? Donald Trump is a goddamn loser. He lost. He lost that war. He went down to Versailles. And that's the spirit, man. The spirit had Donald Trump go down to Versailles to sign that MOU. Now, if you know anything about the First World War, you understand what happened there. You understand that Germany was forced to sign the Treaty of Versailles in the Versailles Palace. Okay, and that was a surrender. That was a surrender document of Germany, and it was a humiliating defeat for the Kaiser. Okay, now what that did was it forced Germany to pay back reparations for the war, and it forced Germany to have a military, to have a cap on the military, which was about 200,000 soldiers, and they couldn't build an air force. So that crippled the German economy. That's the same thing that happened with this MOU. Donald Trump is being forced to pay back reparations, and it was funny because he signed it in Versailles, out of all places. That's the spirit. That's the spirit. Now, in the MOU, when you read one of the 14 points of the MOU, in it is a $300 billion reparation plan. That essentially, a lot of people want to say, well, this is not coming out of taxpayers' money. That's not true, because at the end of the day, this is going to come from these Gulf Arab states. A lot of the Gulf Arab states are not going to recycle that dollar into the American economy, which is what holds up the petrodollar. They're gonna go invest it in Iran. So Iran is gonna be stronger and stronger and stronger, eventually being the ultimate power in the Middle, which it is the ultimate power in the Middle East, along with Turkey, right? The Ottoman Empire. And these small hats, they're talking about going to war against Erdogan. Let me grab this right quick. Right? The least of the flock, because the scriptures say that. The scriptures say that the small hats are going to force these nations to go to war with each other. And that's exactly what's happening, right? The least. Now, they're the least of the flock of Esau, right? Let me grab this. Jeremiah 15:45 says, therefore hear ye the counsel of the Lord that he has taken against Babylon. Now, this is not talking about ancient Babylon now, because ancient Babylon was destroyed and is still inhabited. This Babylon that's talked about is the Babylon that will never come back. Once that Babylon is destroyed, it can never come back. So it says, right, that he had taken against Babylon, and his purposes, that he had purpose against the land of the Chaldeans. Surely the least of the flock shall draw them out. Surely he shall make their habitation desolate with them. So the habitation of Babylon here in America is going to be made absolute desolate. There won't be anybody living in America. There won't be nothing left here. You won't know where Massachusetts was. You won't know where New York, Ohio, where each state was. You know, that line of confusion, as the scriptures say. But the least of the flock is going to draw them out, meaning that America was going to go to war, or Babylon is going to go to war against these other nations via them small hats. And that's what's happening. You know, part of the MOU says what? That there's got to be a ceasefire. The first point, there's got to be a ceasefire in all fronts. That all proxies got to come in subjection, including the Israeli proxy, right? But we understand that this nation is run by the small hats, man. They control all forms of government via AIPAC and all these damn foreign lobbies. You know, they control the American government. You know, because at the end of the day, they're the rulers. Talking about the elite families, starting with the Rothschilds on down. You know, who are demonic as all hell, man. You know, and they're the ones that are calling the shots. So they're gonna force the hammer, which is America, to fight all these nations, right? To fight Iran, to keep fighting Iran, because their plan is to destroy Iran completely. You know, their plan is to wipe away, commit mass murder, worse than the Nazis, right? And that's what they want to do. Okay, and ultimately, what that's going to lead up to this third world war in the Middle East, presuming in Joel the 3rd chapter. Let me grab that. Very important. This is a very important part of prophecy. Joel chapter 3. It says, I'm going to start at 9, get to the point. Proclaim ye this among the Gentiles. Prepare war. Wake up the mighty men. Let all the men of war draw near. Let them come up. Be your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I'm strong. Assemble yourselves and come, all ye heathen, and gather yourselves together round about. Thither cause thy mighty ones to come down, O Lord. Let the heathen be weakened and come up to the valley of Yahweh Shaphat, right? For there will I sit to judge all the heathen round about. Put ye in the sickle, for the harvest is ripe. Come get you down, for the press is full, the fats overflow, for their wickedness is great, right? Multitudes in the valley of decision, right? And that's what Yahweh Shaphat means. Yahweh Shaphat means Most High's judgment. That's what that means, right? It says the sun and the moon shall be darkened, right? And the stars shall withdraw their shining, right? The Lord also shall roar out of Zion. And what's going to cause the sun and the moon to go dark, man? thermonuclear missiles, thermonuclear missiles, mushroom clouds going up, right? These mushroom clouds are going to block the sun. All these missiles, which are going to be 200,000 missiles, they're going to blot out the sun. The scriptures say that the earth is going to move to and fro like a drunkard. What's going to make the earth move to and fro like a drunkard is thermonuclear warfare, right? The scriptures say the battle of the warrior before in ancient times was hand-to-hand combat. This battle is going to be with burning and fuel of fire. How do you fight a battle with burning and fuel of fire? Via missiles, hypersonic, ballistic missiles. Now Russia just showed a good demonstration where they blasted Kiev with a couple of the Oreshniks, which are able to deliver nuclear warheads, and you can't stop a Oreshnik. You can't stop a Karam shot. Those hypersonic missiles. There's no technology on the planet that can stop a hypersonic missile. And America way behind the hypersonic game. We have the Dark Eagle missile, right? Which was it was deployed to the Middle East, but it's never been tested in combat. So we don't really know. They don't really know how the missile's gonna do. Because the military industrial complex, right, which is what's responsible for defense, right, is very corporated, meaning that everything is for profit. It's not for the defense of the nation. Okay, you got like Raytheon, Lockheed Martin, all these contractors that make the American weaponry. They're not for the defense of the nation. They're for a profit, right? So it takes $5 million to build a Patriot missile. As of our Karam shot takes not even $1 million. It takes like $300,000 because the Iranian military complex, the Russian military complex are for the defense of the nation, right? We used to be in the defense of the nation. If you go back to the Second World War, right? The Second World War, you had the military-industrial complex that was made for the defense of the nation. It was made to build mass production of guns and tanks and ammo. Okay, but that's not the case anymore. Now the military-industrial complex has been taken over by private corporations, private contractors that make these weapons. There's about 33 contracting manufacturers that manufacture weapons. The main threes are Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, and I forgot the other one. But anyways, you people can look it up. But the bottom line is that this is why this war is going to be a logistical problem, nightmare for the Americans in the West, right? Because they only produce about 20 Patriot missiles a year. As of Iran is producing thousands of them, hundreds of them a year, because they brought all their military facilities underground. But the bottom line is that let me grab this. The bottom line is that the playing field's been leveled. That's why the scriptures say this: "As thou become weak as we," right? Because everybody got missiles, everybody got nukes, everybody got drones. So now America is not the sole power of the planet. It's not the ultimate hegemon of the planet, right? Now we're living on what's called a multipolar world, where you have different hegemons. America's not the only superpower now, right? You have China, you have Russia that are the main superpower. You have India. Now you have Iran, right? Because the playing field's been leveled with Esau, man, and he's losing his power. The so-called white man is losing his power on the planet. Okay, and that's facts. They lost all the military bases in the Middle East, right? Saudi Air Base was destroyed. The Bahrainian air bases are destroyed, where the U.S. Fifth Fleet, right? Yeah, these are the real Jews according to the Bible. You're not the real Jews. Okay, you're a bunch of imposters. These are Khazars, man. These are Khazars. But anyways, they get cut. They gonna die anyways. They gonna die. They nuke food anyways. Um, so the U.S. has lost a lot of military. Now, in order for you to be a empire, you have to have military bases. You have to project power. The Romans projected power because they had a military establishment pretty much in all the known ancient world, right? They had a military presence. They had to have forts. They had forts, right? Likewise today we have embassies and we have military bases in all parts of the planet, the U.S., right? So, that's how the so-called white man is able to have his empire, which the new Roman emperor is Trump, right now, right, or the president, right. Now, the decline of that is when you start losing these military bases, you can't project power because you can't readily go and attack. It takes effort to move your military assets from one part of the planet to the other. So you have to have them ready in case your subjugates revolt. You see, like that's why they had a military presence in Germany. The U.S. left about 250,000 men in Germany since the Second World War as a response to the Cold War, in case they had to fight Russia because Germany is close to Russia. You know, they can easily go and fight the Russians if they have at least some type of a military arm in Germany, where they didn't have to ship, you know, all those military, the tanks, the aircraft carriers will have to go from here over to Europe. They gotta cross the Atlantic Ocean, where they're susceptible to submarine, because there's Russian subs patrolling all the Atlantic, and they're undetectable. So if the U.S. gets into a hot war with Russia, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna be bad. Now you had Trump. He threatened um, um, the chancellor of Germany, and said, "Yeah, we're gonna pull out 5,000 troops," which is nothing. But if the U.S. starts pulling out their assets from these other countries, that's the end of the American empire, and we're looking at the downfall and the end of the United States empire, of the empire of the Edomites. Okay. Now, what was the scripture I was gonna get? Okay. Grab this. This is in Isaiah 14. I'm gonna get to the point. Isaiah 14:10 says this, right? And they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy vows, right? And you just look at Trump, man. This dude's a very pompous individual, a narcissist. He's a real narcissist by the definition of narcissism, okay? And this man could be outright losing, right? And he'll still say I'm winning. He's winning, because he's the big and the bad and the unbeatable, undefeatable, the almighty, right? Well, as the scriptures say, pride cometh before destruction. Pride cometh before destruction. We keep going. It says, the worm is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee, meaning they're gonna die. This empire is gonna die. That's what this is going into. Because when the body dies and it goes to the ground, it decomposes, and it just eventually there's nothing left of the body, right? The worms start eating the body up, maggots and stuff like that. Well, that's a metaphor for the way this place is gonna go out, the way their empire is gonna go out. They ain't gonna be remembered no more. You ain't gonna remember that these vile people used to rule. There's gonna be a point of time in history, after the kingdom gets established, right? That nobody's gonna remember that these damn evil ass people used to be in power. Nobody's gonna remember that. I'm gonna have to tell my children, You see these dirty ass Edomites that are out there in the field. They used to rule over us with a heavy hand. You know, obviously before the 1,000 years are over, right? When we had these damn Edomites in slavery in a pit, you know, and our sons are gonna be really, daddy. These people right here, they used to have y'all in subjection. They used to fuck y'all up like that. Yeah, really, daddy. Yeah, yeah. And it happened because um, we violated the word of the Lord. We violated the word of the Lord, and the Lord punished us and gave us into the hand of a cruel enemy, a merciless enemy like the Edomites. Yeah. But now, in the kingdom of heaven, that's going to be impossible to do because the laws are going to be written in our inward parts. We're going to be born righteous. Okay? We're going to be born after the order of Melchizedek, man. Malak Tazadak, which means a king of righteousness. Right? We're going to be righteous in its entirety. You see? Our children are going to be born righteous. We're all going to be born righteous. You know, we ain't going to have to war with each other. We ain't going to have to look at our brother with an evil eye. You know, ain't going to be no lying to each other. Ain't going to be none of that fucking bullshit, man. You know, we ain't going to be killing each other in the streets like dogs. You know, where, you know, these are curses that are going to be on Esau in the kingdom. In the kingdom, they're going to be killing each other, man. As a matter of fact, we used to joke. We used to say, man, we're going to have fucking coliseums and send fucking tigers to have them battling tigers, man. Why? Because they did it to us. So the scriptures say, I for an eye, two for two. He that leadeth to captivity will go into captivity, man. You know, they fucked us up. Now it's going to be their turn. You know, let me grab this. Art thou he that shall altogether go unpunished, right? Go ahead, right? Let me grab that. Art thou. And Salaki, my phone has problems. I got to get a new phone. So this thing just dies all of a sudden. You know, it's been going good now, but I charge it, but, you know, the shit just dies. I got to get a new phone today. It says, are thou he? So if, you know, if the cam goes out, you know, I'll still keep talking, but it might die. Are thou he that shall, that shall go unpunished, right? Jeremiah 49:12, it says, thus saith the Lord, behold, they whose judgment was not to drink of the cup have surely drunken. And art thou he that shall altogether go unpunished? Thou shalt not go unpunished, but thou shalt surely drink of it. Now, these people right here, right, weren't supposed to drink of that cup. You know? Right? Whose judgment was not to drink of the cup. These are talking about the Israelites, and we drank it. What was that cup? The cup of slavery, the cup of destruction, despair, the cup of being the last, always last. That was that cup. You know, hardcore bondage. You know, the curses that were put on us that we still have. That was that cup, right? We drank it, right? And we're the chosen people. We're the people of the Lord's eye. Okay, these people right here are the chosen people because we fit prophecy, right? And then who are you, Esau? You ain't shit, man. The Most High hates Esau. He said, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. Is there unrighteousness with God? God forbid, right? So how much more you, man? Where eventually the Most High is going to eradicate you off the face of the planet. You know, as it says in Obadiah verse 18. Okay, Obadiah 1:18. You know. Jacob for a flame, and Esau will be for stubble. You know, completely eradicated, as rightfully so, man. These are a wicked race of people, bro. You know, and I was thinking about this. You know, the Iranians. There's this dude that I watch, Mohammed Marandi. He be coming out. He's an Iranian professor over in University of Tehran. And you know, he says we can't trust the Americans. We can't trust. And honestly, when they say we can't trust, they're not talking about us. They're not talking about Jakes. They're not talking about niggas. right? They're talking about Esau, the so-called white man, right? As a matter of fact, when you go back to the the Iranian embassy situation, right? When it was the after the 1950 coup in Iran, right? Um, Ayatollah Khamenei, the guy that got killed. I just remember. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, right? He said the Jakes that were in the embassy, let him go. You can look it up at the hostage, the Iranian hostage situation. I forgot the year it was. I'll be lying if I said I knew. But anyways, you can look up Iranian embassy hostage situation after the 1950 coup, right? That's when the Iranian the Islamic Revolution started. Ayatollah Khamenei let the blacks go. He said, you know, the blacks can go because, you know, they're victims. That's what he said. They're victims, and he let all the Edomites stay because they, yo, bro, these nations know who the devil is, man. You know, the great Satan. They know who great Satan is. They know who the so-called white man. Yeah, you're the Satan. You're Satan. You're going into slavery. You know, these damn devils going screaming out of a goddamn car, man. Don't got no bass in his voice. Come out the fucking car, man. You know. Anyways, um, you know, they know who Satan was, but it's the same mo. When the so-called white man came here, right? They lied to the Native Americans, right? And then they made pacts with the Native Americans, so-called Native Americans, right? And they violated every single pact. The scriptures say his words were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart, right? And it's the same MO today. The same white man that was in the 1400s, the same white man today, labeling everybody terrorists except him, right? Everybody's a terrorist. He's a terrorist. They did that with the native. As a matter of fact, go read Christopher Columbus's memoirs, right? Go read Cristobal Colon. He was the first one that came to the Americas, and he said he couldn't put down his sword for one bit. He called them people uncivilized. That was the word that he used. Uncivilized. You know, terrorists. But this is the snake. The so-called white man's a snake, right? Because he'll paint everybody else as evil except what he does. Everything he does is right. In the name of democracy, in the name of freedom, in the name of this, I'm gonna go fuck you up in the name of democracy. I'm gonna go bomb you in the name of democracy. All right? That's what the so-called white man does. That's why he's that serpent, that devil, that old serpent going back to Cain. He's very good at. Matter of fact, let me get the scripture right here. Um, Psalms 55 and 21. It says. It says. It says. Let me start. Let me start at 21. Actually, 20. It says, "He hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him." Right? He hath broken his covenant. There it is. That's what I was saying. Same white man in 1400s, the same white man today. Same shit. Right? Let me read that again. He hath put forth his hands against such as be at peace with him. He hath broken his covenant. Right? The words of his mouth were smoother than butter, right? And this devil's smooth, man. I'm telling you, man, this devil, this Edomite devil is smooth, man. You know, he's smooth at selling a propaganda. You know, they're masters of propaganda. It says, the words of his mouth were smoother than butter, but war was in his heart. His words were softer than oil, right? Yet were they drawn swords, right? And this is a prophecy about the so-called white man, that he was gonna be, he was gonna come in that smooth. Hey, friend, how you doing, friend? You know, he'll give you a paper to sign with little ass letters on the bottom, so so you're not looking. If you ain't paying attention, you gonna put your signature in that shit. It's over. They have a right to claim all your shit, man. We can't wait till the Heavenly Father destroys this damn devil, man. The Most High is gonna destroy him. Okay? The Most High is gonna destroy this man, and he's already starting to destroy his man. You know, his infrastructure is crumbling. His grip of power on the world is crumbling. His generations are being more degenerate by the minute, man. Every generation is more degenerate. Pay attention to the average generation. All they want to do is be stuck on stupid, playing video games and TikTok and bullshit. You see? Let me grab this. Then will I bring thee down, right? It says Obadiah 1 and 4, right? Let me start at verse 1. I'm gonna start at 1. The vision of Obadiah, saith the Lord power, concerning Edom, okay? Adawamim, right? The red man, right? We have heard a rumor from the Lord, and an ambassador is sent among the heathen. Arise ye, and let us rise up against her in battle. Behold, I have made thee small among the heathen. Thou art greatly despised. And what that's what I was saying. Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, he said the blacks can go. Let all the devils, the Edomites, let all the white people stay. That's what Ali Khamenei said, because he was like, the blacks have gone through a lot. So he said the white people stay right here. They let them stay right there. Because they know who the devil is, man. These other nations know who's responsible for the schmuck that the world is in. They understand these things, right? Let me keep going. It says, the pride of thine heart hath deceived, right? Thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock, whose habitation is high, that saith in his heart, who shall bring me down? Right, the clefts of the rock, going back to Petra, going back to Mount Seir, going back to the Caucasus, because they went from Petra, they went from Mount Seir all the way to the Caucasus Mountain. That's why they call Caucasians. Now they took that term Caucasian off the census, right? When you read the census, which we don't fill out no census, that's wicked anyways. The Lord told you not to number the children, right? But when you go into the census, you used to see if white or Caucasian, right? Now all you see is white, or they'll have white Pacific Islander, white Hispanic, white this, white that. It's just the devil, man, playing semantics, man. You know, it says that said in his heart, who shall bring me down? Right, the Almighty, the big, the bad, the Marine, the all proud, the DJ Trump example. Just look at that dude, man. Look at Nero, man. Nero is invincible, right? It says, though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, though thou set thy nest among the stars, thence will I bring thee down, saith the Lord. Now, the white man's animalistic symbol is the eagle. I work at a lot of these Edomite homes. When you walk in the on the house, on top of the door, they'll usually have an eagle staring down, or the Romans had the standard eagle. The Americans have the eagle. Look at the back of the dollar bill. You have the eagle with that snake. The Grecians had the eagle. The Germans had the eagle. The German eagle. Look at the German eagle. What else? All Edomite empires have had the eagle as their animal symbol, right? Minus the Russians. The Russians have the bear, but that's symbolic, because when you go into the scriptures of the Russians, you understand the purpose of the Lord with the Russians. Though they're still Edomites, right? They're a different faction of Esau, but nonetheless, the eagle is the animal symbol of the Edomites. Our animal symbol, we're sheeps. We're the sheep, man. The Lord regards us as his sheep. Let me keep going. It says, though thou exalt thyself as the eagle, right? And the eagle, one more thing, right, is one of the most proud, pompous animal in the animal kingdom. You know, the eagle nest, the nest is very high. They like to, what's going on? They like to nest very high, look down on the prey, you know, and swoop down on the prey, you know, and the eagle will attack anything. It'll fight anything because that's a representation of the so-called white man. That's how he is. Okay? It says, and though thou set thy nest among the stars and space stations, right? Thence will I bring thee down. So ever since the 1960s, Esau has been losing their power. You know, you had a lot of historic um, movements in America, primarily in America, because this is Satan's seat. This is the seat of Satan right here. You know, so you had the civil rights movements, you had the all kinds of movements where you had a lot of these you know, so-called minorities, um, you know, come up against the government and you know, uprise, you know, and that gave way to prophecy where the Lord said that He will loose the yoke of our necks. He will lose the yoke of our necks, right? That meaning that, like myself today, I'm able to come out here because of that, where I'm not gonna get lynched, or there ain't gonna be a mob looking to kill me for the things that I'm saying, you know, which that was the Lord that set that up for the prophets, for us, starting with the elders and the head apostles of GMS on down, man. You know, because we have the 100% truth. All right, the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, you know, those are men of the Lord, man. Those are men of the Lord. I wholeheartedly believe it. But anyways, you know, though, you know, I may not be part of GMS anymore for whatever happened, right? You know, whatever it may be, the Lord has, you know, brought me out here. I still teach the same message that the brothers and elders and apostles GMS teach, you know, because I learned from them. So I give them honors, okay? I give them double honors, okay? So anyways, you know, ever since the 60s, you had the, more importantly, you had the Hebrew Israelite movement. You had Abba Bivens and, you know, and the progression of the Hebrew Israelite movement. That even though some of these Hebrew Israelite camps are going off, you know, they still help the truth. Because if say a person that's never heard about, you know, so-called Negroes, Native Americans, and Latinos being the real Israelites, right? Say that, you know, if they open up the YouTube and they look at Nate and they hear, yeah, you're a so-called Negro, Native American, Latino, yeah, you're chosen of the Lord. Guess what? If the Lord wills it, that brother that heard that message, he'll go and inquire, and he'll start digging up. The Spirit will lead him to start digging up stuff, and eventually, you know, the Lord, if He's of the elect, will lead him to the right truth, to the 100% truth. You know, if He's of the elect, because at the end of the day, we're only concerned with the elect, man. We can't give mercy to everybody. It's not of us to give mercy. We don't give mercy. We're just messengers, right? Mercy is of the Lord. He said, I will have mercy on whom I will have mercy, and I'll have compassion on whom I'll have compassion, man. You know, it's the Lord that gives mercy. We don't give mercy, man. You know, but that's why we make our calling and election sure, man. We ain't concerned with beat bullshit. You know, you have dudes, brothers out there, so not really brothers, but you know, you have ex dudes out there that call themselves prophet, and instead of being concerned in prophecy and teaching people, they're concerned about rebuking this and rebuking that and rebuking, man. You know, you gotta let these things to the Lord, man. You gotta let these things to the Lord. You know, oh, you know, the elders from so gotta bring this out and this, that, and the third, and because this, that, you gotta leave it to the Lord, man. This is not of us. If you ain't part of their group, you know, there's many other people that are doing wicked shit, man. Go out there. Like the scriptures say, if they don't hear you or accept you, wipe your hands and move on. Move on. Leave it to the Lord. Leave it to the Lord. Because there's a lot of people doing wicked shit out there too, man. If you claim that these brothers did X, Y, and Z so wicked, you know, and I'm speaking of a certain individual, but you know, if you hear it, let you know, and the spirit cuts you, let it be. You ain't supposed to be concerned with businesses of other men. You know, now if you have a camp out there, um, um, you know, teaching things contrary to the doctrine, as a matter of fact, it's in the scripture. Mark them which cause division, contrary to the doctrine. If you have a man out there, you know, if the elders of GMS Boston come out talking about some hell or some bullshit, any other doctrine that ain't what they originally were taught, what they've been teaching, which they still are teaching that. Okay, by all means, man, you know, uh, 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 by all means, you're supposed to rebuke that doctrine. You're supposed to combat that doctrine. You know, but that's it, man. That's your concern. Your concern is with doctrine. Why? Because it affects the elect. It affects the Lord's sheep. You know, we're concerned with the Lord's sheep, man. We ain't concerned with individuals, man. Leave that to the Lord and keep going. You know. Let me grab this. Romans chapter 16 and 17. It says, I'm going to start 17. Now I beseech you, brethren, mark them which cause divisions and offenses contrary to the doctrine which ye have learned, and avoid them. For they that are such serve not our Lord Yahweh Shai, but for their own belly, and by good words and fair speeches deceive the heart of the simples. And that's what it is, man. They deceive the heart of the sheep. So if any man is teaching anything contrary to the doctrine, that's when you're supposed to make videos and rebuke. You ain't a part of that camp, man. So let it be. Let it be. You know, them men are out there, you know, week in and week out teaching the same thing, man. They're teaching the same doctrine that you so-called give honors to the elders of GMS, man. The elders and apostles of GMS. The elders of GMS Boston, those are faithful men, man. They're still out there teaching, and they're teaching the same thing, man. So let it be, man. What the hell's your beef, man? You know. And you know, it's crazy because I wasn't gonna say nothing about no shit. You know, this is shit that was going on a couple of weeks ago, but the spirit just let it out, man. You know, and then you mentioned, you know, you gotta get off feelings, man. The Lord ain't dealing with feelings. Okay? The Lord ain't dealing with feelings. The Lord is dealing with men that are sound. When all hell breaks loose, you know, women are gonna be in their feelings. Oh my God, oh you know, if you're a man of understanding, you ain't into feelings. Them brothers kicked me out because, you know, I wasn't doing videos or whatever the hell, or you know, but you don't say what you did, right? You don't say nothing about what you did. You just outright have it against, you know, people that quote unquote did something bad to you. The Lord ain't dealing with that shit, man. The Lord ain't dealing with that shit. Our concern is with prophecy. Our concern is with going out to the highways and byways. That was the Great Commission. The Great Commission was to go out to the highways and byways and teach the word, man. Teach prophecy. All right. But that's it on that, man. That's all I had to. That's all I had to say on that. But you know, it's crazy. I didn't even plan on speaking about it, but it just went in there. That's the spirit. It just went in there. We're doing what we're supposed to do, man. All right, which is to come out to the highways and byways and bind as many as we can to the marriage. And that's it. And that's it. When you start meddling and you know, getting crazy into everything else and shit that doesn't even concern you, you know, you go off the rails, man. You go off the rails. You're taken away from what the Lord wants you to do. The core of what the Lord wants you to do, which is to bind as many as you can to the marriage, man. You know, at the end of the day, the men have been sanctioned by the elder apostles, and they still are. Let it be, man. Let it be. Let it be. Talk about, you know, they want to slander the men of the Lord. Slander the men of the Lord. How do you know if you're a man of the Lord? I could say I'm a man of the Lord. I have faith I'm a man of the Lord. I hope I'm a man of the Lord. But many are called and few are chosen. We've seen many men that have come before say they're men of the Lord, and they look where they are today, back in the world. You know, we pray and hope we're men of the Lord. Stay humble, man. Stay humble. Um, anyways, let me grab this in case my phone dies. Um, let me see. Let me grab Rev 18. This is a beautiful precept to go on. Revelations 18 chapter says, and after these things, I saw another angel come down from heaven, having great power, and the earth was lightened with his glory. And he cried mightily with a strong voice, saying, Babylon the Great is fallen, and is become the habitations of devils, and the hold of every foul spirit, and a cage of every unclean and hateful bird. For all nations have drunk of the wine of the wrath of her fornications, and the kings of the earth have committed fornication with her, and the merchants of the earth are waxed rich through the abundance of her delicacies. America is Babylon, okay? That Babylon that's talking about, just like I said earlier in the camp, America is Babylon. And it says Babylon is fallen. Okay, it's fallen. Just like we read in Obadiah, the first chapter, the first verse, that said that when they go up into the stars, they're gonna fall. Well, this is what this is reiterating, right? That America is gonna be destroyed by thermonuclear missiles. All right. It says it says it says for they have the verse 5. Actually, oh, this is 16, right? Went forward. It says, verse 8, therefore shall her plagues come in one day, death and mourning and famine, and she shall be utterly burned with fire, for strong is the Lord power who judgeth her. Right? Therefore, verse 9, and the kings of the earth who have committed fornication and lived deliciously with her shall bewail her, okay, and lament for her, okay, when they shall see the smoke of her burning, standing afar off for the fear of the torment, saying, Alas, alas, the great city Babylon, that mighty city, for in 1 hour is thy judgment come. And it takes about an hour for intercontinental ballistic missile to reach mainland America, okay, from these other nations. Okay, Russia got that missile called Satan 1 and Satan 2, which are those are hydrogen bombs, which is make atomic bomb look like firecrackers, man. You know, and those are the missiles that are going to be hitting America. Okay, pretty soon. Okay, the merchandise of gold and silver and precious stones, and of pearls and fine linen, right, and purple and silk and scarlet, and all thine wood, and all manner of vessels of ivory, and all manner of vessels of most precious wood, and of brass and iron and marble. Right, because all these other nations make trade with America. You know, if you look at the back of your shirt, they'll probably say made in Vietnam, made in China, made in here, Singapore, made in there. You know, this is a consuming nation, a consumer nation. Okay, all the factories have been shipped abroad. Apple doesn't make their iPhones over here in California anymore. They make it in Singapore. You know, they make it Vietnam. They make it elsewhere where labor is cheap. You know, and these other nations, they profit off that because um, they bring money to their economy. You know, so at the end of the day, everybody's intertwined with America, right? And they all these nations, when they start to launch nukes and missiles over here, they once this place get hit and burned, they're all gonna be in shock, man, in shock. This is the strongest military on the planet, and like I said, I have to reiterate the point that the strongest military on the planet was just embarrassed by a third rate country called Iran. You know, that didn't even have a military. You got this jackass Nero, right? Talking about they have no more navy, they have no more army, they have no more this, no more defenses. And you know, if you're unlearned in military tactics, if you're unlearned in what's going on, you'll believe the man. But the reality is different. Iran never really had a military to begin. Salak, Iran never had a navy to begin with. You know, they had a few big vessels that were old, and they never really had an air force to begin with. They have F-5 Phantom fighters, which actually one of them bombed Kuwait. And what does that tell you about the American air defenses? You know, what does that tell you about it? That they're gone. They're destroyed. What Iran has is asymmetric warfare style tactics, be it using ballistic missiles, drones, and satellite information to pinpoint accuracy, man, which is more powerful than mano a mano, hand to hand, navy against navy, one ship here against another ship. Bow, bow. No, man, this is um, ancient style warfare. Wars ain't gonna be fought like that anymore. You know, even in Ukraine, they ain't going. Yeah, you have your skirmish of a Ukrainian soldier maybe shooting at another Russian soldier in a few instances, right? But they have a no man's land like the First World War. They have a trench, and in the trench you have PVF drone operators, first person view drone operators that are hunting down Russian soldiers, and the Russians have the same thing. They have first person view drones hunting down Ukrainian soldiers, and that's how the war is going. And then they have artillery, and then they have missiles raining down on Kiev, raining down on Zaporizhia, raining down on the Donbass, all them areas, man. Kharkiv, Kherson, they're just getting the old blasts. They're getting hammered by the zircons. Zircon. Look up zircon ballistic missiles. You have to understand these things, man. The scriptures say we have the unction to know all things. You study to make thyself approved. You have to know these things, man, because that's how you back up prophecy with substance, man. You know, when somebody goes by you and they you just read the prophecy, but you don't have no substance to back it up. You know, they look at you like more of a fool. You know, you're supposed to say, nah, look, man, this is going on, that's going on. Look what happened here in Russia. Look at this, da 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 da. You know, and you have brothers that been given, um, you know, what do you call it, a talent to know a lot of different things. You know, which is good. You know, but our job is to know as much as we can. You know, because again, we've been commanded, we've been given a charge. That's what anointed means. Anointed means to be given a charge. Okay, to be unction, salaki, an unction, right? We have an unction of the Heavenly Father to know all things. Okay, that's what that means. You see, because we can back everything up with substance. All right, you know. So, anyways, what's going on, man? Good, thanks. You guys talking about this? Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. The reason why we say that is